Sand Harbor 1. My bad.
Oh, okay. All right.
No.
Check. Hey. Check. Check. Hey. Check. 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 That's one line. Check. Check. Hey. Hey. Where's the board? Board's in the center, right? Okay. Oh, that's right. Yeah. All right.
Had the presentation already set up, just didn't have the audio.
Right. Who's turning your volume down? Hey. There we go. Check. There we go.
Oh, because I'm hearing.
Check.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
This one's really loud.
Loud enough for the microphone to pick up your thing. And so we're actually getting.
I usually hit the speaker off.
We're
so-
actually getting a feedback
Check.
loop
Check.
Oh,
from your laptop.
I'm sorry.
This one on.
Yeah, so that should be logged
Check.
in with the
Check.
session.
You look like you do over here.
Hey.
You just on there, I was like,
On Tuesday.
Yeah, you know, it
Hello.
happened to me yesterday. I had to shut the speaker off. My bad, guys.
yeah, so you're just too close to the microphone.
Trust me, I just need one more day and I'll have it perfect.
Yeah.
Number 2's not working.
Is it on?
Do.
I only had 3 microphones
Yeah.
in here.
Oh,
One, 3, and 4.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
there we go.
had it set up where we had three mics per room and a spare.
Oh.
That way, if any of them gave me problems, I would just kill it.
Oh.
You know,
Right.
I just kill it and we just keep.
This camera thing's so awesome, man. Thanks.
Yeah.
I get people dialed in, man. They're like, oh, wow. And I noticed that when I zoom in, there's less latency.
Oh,
Because if you're zoomed out, I think it's too
trying
many.
to pick up too much.
Yeah, and then you see them pause, and it's like, oh, that's not good. Hey, thanks, man.
Mike's word. I had some lady, she was standing off to the side. And you could see her head, you could barely see her head above the laptop. And she looked like this really tiny thing. It's hilarious. And it was just because she was standing off to the side.
He's gonna climb the truck.
Holy smokes.
Okay, we're good for it, man. I'll get on it. Hit window key P for me on that screen. And go to extended. There you go. You're set.
Thank you. God, they make that shortcut easy.
Yeah. It's been embedded with 7.
Really? I didn't know.
Well, you stopped at XC, right?
I stopped at ICB. I still use the computers. I just don't do any IT stuff anymore.
It's all good. Break it.
Who are you? I used to flip them upside down. People would turn their monitor upside down. I'm like, that's fun.
don't know if they have, oh, I haven't adapted yet. Okay. Yeah, it's from the web.
Got the graphic loaded. Yeah, you know what's funny? I found it on the web, but it was like a web file. And so I was gonna just do a screen capture, turn it into a JPEG. But I was like, I just better ask Dave.
Well, we QC'd all the audio this morning.
Yeah, everything sounded good. That's the better mic. These are like kind of quiet. Let the
They're
presenter.
quiet?
Yeah, they're a little softer than that one.
Probably the capsule.
Hey, check.
Hey.
You got turned on.
Hey.
It's all about how you project into it.
But if that one picks up, I think a little bit better.
Yeah, the capsule's probably a little bit better. If you're like, oh, I can't hear what's going on. And you can, and you notice in here we're quiet. Take them. Just shove it in your face and project. Yeah, pretty much. Project like normal conversation volume. Okay.
I think a lot of people just used to carry.
Yeah, no, we need to hear them.
My singing sucks. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna put it out here.
And if you preface all your speakers, speak into the microphone, normal conversation volume. That will help everything.
Okay. When are you heading back?
Thursday about 3. I live in Carson City.
Oh, yeah. You can go back anytime.
Yeah, it's like 25 minutes.
Yeah, we got to drive out here, and that was a pretty cool drive.
Which way you come up? Big Pine through.
Yeah, 395. The only thing was weird is me and my wife, and we had all the stuff loaded in a 15-passenger van. We took all the seats out, just loaded the boxes.
Jeez.
And so we're going through the mountainous area, like the valley or whatever, and the winds were kicking on Saturday, man. It was pushing us around. And then, like, she said she saw a semi-truck driver hold his wheel like this.
Whoa, that's bad.
I was like, damn.
Ain't no got windy that up there.
Oh, yeah. It was like through Lone Pine and Big Pine.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was like hardcore winds. Then when we got up closer to here, because it was getting dark, we actually started seeing snow.
Yeah,
And I was like,
snow on Saturday.
well, we don't have chains. We better get there quick. Because I don't think they're
I
going to
didn't think about that when you said Saturday. It snowed.
Yeah.
It wasn't really sticking, but it was snowing.
Yeah, I was like, we got no grip, so we better just like get up there.
Again, I've driven a big truck with a trailer in real icy cold weather. That's not fun.
Oh, yeah.
That's got to be hard to handle that.
Well, I used to live in Nebraska, and I took my wife to visit family out there, and we were out there when they had a blizzard, and we were driving the rental around. I go, see, honey, how you get to drive in a blizzard? Major experience.
Yeah, I've driven in Nevada. I live in Elko. I've driven some stuff like, I'm not going to live through this. I just follow a rig. Yeah, just follow a rig. We're out going about 5 miles per hour. You can't see anything, you know, and the wind blowing is just like, I hope I don't hit a patch of ice. Please don't hit a patch of ice.
I met people that were from Elko at conferences. I said, yeah, I'm in Vegas. You want to cruise out? They're like, are you nuts? You know how far that is? I'm like, oh. I go look at the map. I go, oh, that is far.
I didn't mind the drive to Elko. Up to Vegas.
But I think they were
It's
saying,
like 6.5 miles.
yeah, they're like, we're closer to Idaho than we are.
Oh, by far. By far.
I'll meet you, boys.
I don't think that's street. I know it was like 2 hours away. No, Utah, Idaho close. Yeah, it happens a lot. And most people like California, I grew up in Sacramento. And, you know, my brothers that live over here were like, when you think of Nevada, what do you think? Oh, Vegas, Reno. Are there any other cities?
Yeah, I love Vegas, but it's easy for me to get in trouble out there. I got a lot of friends out there, And it's like, hey, let's ride our bicycles to different bars. I'm like, uh-oh. And then I forget, California, it's like, you gotta drink a lot of water out here.
Yeah, you do. Well, I made a joke yesterday in a session. They're going to strategic planning and they're going over each of the states, and they're going to Nevada, and then they had cut off between northern Nevada and southern Nevada. And then I'm like, don't even call it southern Nevada, it's called California.
Extended NorCal.
No, it's LA, it's a suburb of LA.
Oh, we don't claim LA. Oh, that NorCal.
Right. I grew up in Sacramento, and people are like, well, it's more about, there's Northern California and Southern Cal.
No, all those ones that you don't like Stockton, no, they're not part of us. They're Central California.
That's funny. That's true. That's funny. I used to actually cut it off around Bakersfield, but now it's kind of like Fresno's growing so much. Like anything south of Fresno.
Yeah, we can tell. Like we'll be in traffic. It's like, yeah, that's an LA.
But then I say that about LA and Southern. But then again, I love San Diego area. I'm like, oh, San Diego, you're fine. San Diego, you're fine.
And then when we were up there, they see us using our turn signals. Oh, damn San Diego drivers. I ain't letting them in.
That's funny. That's funny.
But then there is some camaraderie when we make fun of Arizona. Zonies.
I've never heard of that, Zoni.
Oh, yeah. They would say, like, oh, yeah, the Arizona drivers don't know how to drive in California because of fast freeways and stuff.
Yeah.
But, Arizona's like, come on, man, they got some big freeways.
Arizona, Phoenix area is just spread
I
out.
know, like these huge looping highways.
It's a huge, never-ending city.
Then their traffic, I was like, this is like LA traffic.
One thing about LA drive, one compliment I have for LA is the drivers are excellent. If you live in LA, I can tell when someone's from LA. I'm like, oh, that was a really good driver.
Oh, yeah. I think they have to go through a stunt driving book or something.
If there's like a gap in the turn lane, they're like, boom, on it.
Yeah, the maps and stuff where they give you directions. My cousin's like, your maps are no good. He's taking exits that I don't know about.
They are. In Nevada, that thing's useless. The roads are all outdated. They don't know how to get anywhere. They don't have any dirt roads.
Yeah, we still got dirt roads on the res.
At Paula?
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yeah, like where the homes are.
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah.
I just think on the general area, they get these solid waste at the transit station.
Yeah, so the separation between the reservation with the river, which is all dried up, but on the south side, there's more dirt roads and stuff that hasn't really been too developed. I mean, there's nice homes, don't get me wrong, but like some of the roads going out to them aren't paved yet. And so we have trucks that once in a while we'll have to go out there with like water trucks and get all the dirt.
Well, good dirt road's okay.
Yeah.
Nice new roads. As long as it's on the inventory, you can always get money. It's so much money. You need a lot of money to take.
But yeah, I mean, for being dirt roads, and I mean, we don't really have like super strong winds, but sometimes it can get kicked up and like cause a PM issue or something, But for the most part, we've been doing really good. And we're moving towards probably getting everything paid in the near future.
It's just gradual.
Yeah, because we got the grid source coming in where we're switching over a lot of the infrastructure to solar and stuff, battery backup. And as soon as we get like the main infrastructures in place, then we're gonna start like expanding that.
Make sure you got all the infrastructure in place. You don't want to go to break a road area.
Yeah, I mean, like because we'll have like heat waves and stuff where it's like maybe some people have no air conditioning and then they need a safe zone to go to. So yeah, so we'll like have an auditorium where they can like meet and have like AC and stuff.
You're blowing my mind. I didn't even know those things existed.
Yeah.
Safe zone.
Yeah, we'll have like over 100-degree heat, and some of these people don't have AC. And it's like, oh shit. Well, I mean, it hasn't been like that.
You know how much of you're blowing my mind with climate change.
I know.
Not about that.
Well, it never used to really be a problem until now, And so we're like, all this strange.
You got sleep.
Yeah.
Well, I gotta read up on this. That's very interesting.
Yeah, when we get these heat waves, like they're like, you know, hey, if you're elderly or something, you air conditioner on, you can
Well, I actually got heat stroke not recently, and it was 100 degrees in Elko, but Elko's at 5,000 feet.
Yeah.
So it hits you pretty hard. And I'm like, yeah, I didn't even think about it. So if it's like 106, 5 years down the road, secret don't have that.
And it's funny because like north of us, in like Palm Springs and stuff, Morongo and like some of these other tribes, they deal with heat over there. And it's like I went out to go help my airhead friends out up in Morongo, and I could barely get out of my vehicle. Even my sister, she's out there like just chugging along, and I'm like, I go out and I go, oh man, and she goes, make sure you drink a lot of water. I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like, I'm gonna collapse. And one gal, she was Torres Martinez tribe, and she grew up in an area called Tahoe. And she would come out like to where we were at. She's like, damn, it's cold here. I'm in shorts and a tank top. I'm like, cold?
I don't want to live in that heat. I don't want to be extreme cold. I want partially cold.
I don't like 4 seasons.
Yeah.
Because like it's nice to see like the color, the change in your leaves and stuff. I miss that, you know. I don't miss raking all that stuff up.
I lived in San Francisco and there's like 1 season.
Yeah.
Continuous.
San Diego's been like you know, you have just go from summer to winter to spring. There's no fall. I've had many Octobers, man, where it's just like hot. You know, it's like,
The fall's my favorite season.
it's like why is it October? You can have it extended to November. It's like it shouldn't be hot.
It'd probably a nice holiday.
Yeah, I mean, like, the kids, they go out and that's when they wreck everything on the doorstep. All those teenagers.
I'm glad to hear the kids are still drinking. We used to do all sorts of things. They don't have candy on.
Put a bag of shit on someone's doorstep and light it on fire. They come out stomping it.
And I see that because it's not like the world I grew up in. The parents take their kids, but we all went together as kids. And if someone didn't have candy, we tricked them.
Yeah, it was like, how many costume changes could you go through when that guy had full-size candy, you know? I'm not the same. It's like, I'm not the same guy.
I know. I have a really nice costume.
How are you?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you can. No, I think Emily Liston was talking about. It's a course thing. Oh, okay. You guys are all dressed up. I wore my suit on Monday. You did your. You're not Mike. Yeah, it's Mike, right?
This mic up here is gonna be.
Because there are people on virtual.
Okay, where do they need to?
Right here, if you're right behind the podium, the camera will see you.
And then he's here as,
I can zoom in on these.
Don't zoom in. We weren't really giving like a bunch of power. Yeah, I mean, right. I mean,
you asked me first? We can move chairs up front on the panel.
Whatever works, but, yeah.
That's what people have been doing when they kind of move a chair up and then they kind of just talk and walk around. What do you?
Chairs up there.
While you guys are up there, I'll also be like showing you the time.
Yeah.
Okay. We don't have introduction.
Okay, yeah, then everybody.
We didn't have that.
But they won't be sharing this.
It's like
Should I pull this one over?
just you three and me. Yeah. Just you three and me, right? Go Darren. I don't know if Darren wants to. Yeah, Darren's right back there. You can come up too. Yeah, they didn't take yours on, right? Just.
Just saw you. I just saw you on the.
So, they have a user that I just linked to. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Do you know who your remote user is?
Yeah.
Chantal
Most
Lawson?
of the camera discussions I did, this was asked Mike to
Oh.
Well,
at least we have a logo.
Cameras need to go up to the camera. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Because after you're here. So, difficult because I know here, but a lot of people talk about what it is. Make sure that they don't want that.
You're right, these tablets actually worked out pretty well for monitoring.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and I'm using the timer over here.
And I just had to keep this one going down.
But I've also been nice to use my timer.
So do you think it would be wise to advise unrecognized speakers? Yes. We don't have enough on site to do it here, but so, but in the future.
Well, the next tribe that's got this for next year is, and I'm not sure where they're sitting. Because we were already locked into using Tahoe.
Yes.
Microphones, and I just turned them on.
Yes,
And use
yes,
them.
yes.
So them on this thing of ballot.
I was gonna say you have to come out But yeah, so in order we can provide services for offsite events, even though it's not our property, we can come in and provide the service.
There's just this young gal that's been helping us. She's in She's from the US.
Okay.
She's gonna be taking over.
Awesome. Yeah, I know who you're talking
So I
about.
just buttered her up and
Okay.
they have their own.
Yes, I heard it was going to be on Tribal.
Yeah, so that's.
We don't mind going anywhere. It may not be me, but it'll be someone from Encore who catches what it is like tribal politics.
Like their
Yeah, but we are the claim, like our claim is to try to keep on property. So you can see, our client would be trying to find seconds.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
So I don't know what the politics behind that is, but okay, great.
Talk to them, see if they have plans.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
If there's dead time, I can bring it.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, just hop into the session and then you have it, I think that goes in. Just make sure like when you're ready to use it. Might take a second.
Is that open mic there? This mic, is this mic? Oh, this is mic we use. Okay. So do we need a runner? Or are you running? Or?
Oh, I got Sophia. We got another mic.
Oh, you got Sophia. Okay. We'll start in a couple of minutes, guys. People just rolling in.
You could do it some facilitators too. I just think you get up, everybody's got to do good fun.
Starting in about 3 minutes. Just people rolling in. I can hear the noise out there.
Chantal, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Do you hear me?
Perfect. I can hear you.
So there are people online? Okay. Okay. I'll let Chantel introduce herself. She's online right now. Okay, everyone, we're about to start here. This is the Nevada session. Each state has a session during the annual EPA Region 9 Tribal Conference. And so you guys most know me. I'm Clifford Van Willis. I am the Tribal State Environmental Liaison with the Intertribal Council of Nevada, and I work with the Nevada Division of Environmental Protection. The position was created in 2003 based on a request from the Pyramid Lake Paiute Tribe and the Duck Valley Shoshone Paiute Tribe. And so what happened, there's a MOU between the state of Nevada and NDEP and ITCN. What NDEP does is they give me a free office, and they allow me to use their communication, their internet, and their phone. But I'm not an employee of NDEP, but they do give me a sweet office. It's nice. And but I am employed by ITCN. And so I work directly with a lot of these individuals here. And so what I want to do first of all is today we're going to discuss general issues in Nevada and what the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources does, working working over NDEP, and they're going to maybe describe again the structure of DCNR with NDEP too. But so that's me, and then I'm going to maybe pass the mic and to Jim Lawrence.
Thank you, Cliff. And good morning, everybody. It is such a pleasure to be here up at Lake Tahoe and spend my time with you this morning. I am Jim Lawrence. I'm the acting director for Nevada's Department of Conservation and Natural Resources. I've been acting director since about July, but I've been with the department in multiple capacities for 24 years now yesterday. So it's been a while, and I'm very familiar with the issues that we're facing regarding natural resources in Nevada. And I will kind of lead off with this, before I do some introductions here. In my experience, and then compared when I got my degrees with natural resource planning, and I'll date myself way back in the 80s, the world has changed a lot. We're dealing with climate issues. We're dealing with more accessibility issues. We're trying to be more inclusive. The landscape due to wildfire and invasive species is changing faster than ever. It's just a different landscape. And it's so great to have conversations with folks like all of you, because I think if we're going to continue to make a difference and come up with sustainable programs for natural resources, it's going to be a collective conversation. And we're seeing it across our department in so many different aspects. I do have a few folks that I'll just let you know who they are. We have Dominique Etchegoyen here is the deputy director for the department. And then Greg Lovato is our administrator for the Division of Environmental Protection. And then Darren Winkleman runs a sustainable program, largely recycling. And then on Zoom, we have Chantal with our Natural Heritage Program, who wants to, say a little bit of information about what they're doing with the Heritage Program. Real briefly, I describe DCNR as basically the state department that does everything outdoors with the exception of wildlife species. There's a separate Department of Wildlife. And we don't do like agriculture or wild horses because there's a separate Department of Agriculture. But everything else regarding land, air, and water, whether it's water resources, environmental protections, our state park systems, we have a new division of outdoor recreation. All of that stuff is coming through DCNR. and in the lens of having a state that's 86% federally managed. And so the state does have certain controls and aspects, but one of our biggest challenges is making sure that we're doing the communication across the board, not just with local governments, but with tribal nations and also with the federal partners as well. And that is becoming more and more challenging. We're getting more and more pressures regarding climate change and electrification regarding mining issues. We're getting more and more pressures we saw during the pandemic regarding more desire to go out and have an outdoor recreation economy or an outdoor experience. But that is having impacts out on the landscape as well. And so we're trying to manage, these different pressures on the landscape in order to have some sort of sustainable environment out there. And that is something that we can't do without partners, and we can't do it without the recognition of the folks that are living out on the landscape and are calling it home. I will turn the mic over to. Oh, sorry. Thanks, Cliff. So yeah, I didn't mention the division of minerals. So I do typically describe DCNR as everything but agriculture and wildlife. I don't usually get the mineral question, but there is a separate, in state government, there is a separate state division of minerals. It's a small division. It is not part of DCNR, but they do track the mineral rights, and they do also kind of work in the space of some lithium permitting, and also kind of trying to balance, where the demand for mineral exploration is going to be, with working with the partners regarding practices and protecting the landscape at the same time. So I do, particularly for this conversation this morning, we do want to make it conversational and just want to talk about the things that's most interesting to you. I will turn it over now to Dominique Etchegoyen. He is our designated tribal liaison for the department. I am proud that the state legislature, I think it was 2 legislative sessions ago, recognized the importance of an increased and better consultation and communications with tribal nations. And so they passed a law mandating that each department has a tribal liaison. And then we have folks embedded in our different divisions. We are striving to keep doing better. We've always tried to do our best, but we know that we can always do better. Because like I said, the stakes are so high these days regarding natural resources. And if we don't do it collectively, we're not going to be as successful as we could be. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dominique Etchegoyen to talk about our tribal programs and anything else you want to talk about.
Thank you, Jim. Again, my name is Dominique Etchegoyen. I am Jim's deputy director. I've been with the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources now for 6 years. So I don't have nearly the knowledge and the experience that Jim does, but I'm trying to do my best. I know that many of you already have working relationships with our department. And as Jim said, we're a multifaceted department with 8 divisions, 4 standalone programs, and 14 boards and commissions. If we're fully staffed and we've got all of our seasonals hired, we have over 1,000, not quite 1,100 individual employees. Right now, because of vacancy, we're down close to 750. But that's a lot for us to get our arms around. So I hope that you've got those good working relationships with our individual divisions and programs. But if you don't, as Jim said, I'm the designated tribal liaison for the department. And I want to do the best that I can to make sure that I'm getting you in contact on the issues that interest you with our subject matter experts within our department. If you've got a relationship that isn't working, or if you don't know who to contact, come to me. I'll make sure that we get you in the right place. We also have individuals who they're not officially designated as liaisons within our divisions, but we've got individuals who that's part of their role. They're the individual liaison role for that division. And so I'd work to get you in contact with them and those other subject matter experts. As Jim said, we are committed to partnering and collaborating, and this is important for the state of Nevada. This is incredibly important for our department and the work that we do. We think, that's fundamental, right? That's the basics for us. Right here, we're talking about knowledges of the land. We know that it's critical to our 27 tribes that we've got that relationship, but I want you to understand that that's critical to us to meeting our mission. Our mission is to protect, manage, and enhance Nevada's natural, cultural, and recreational resources. In my experience, That's the same goal and objective of the tribes. We dovetail perfectly right there. Now, we're not always going to see eye to eye. We're going to have challenges, but it's important to build that relationship, maintain those communications, and then promote and grow them. We can do better. I know that we've got challenge areas, and that's why we've got me designated as the liaison. We recognize that, and we're doing the best we can as a state and the department to help address those issues and make them better. So that's really what I wanted to say. I'm here to bridge the gap. I'm your point of contact. If you're tribal historic preservation officers, if you're tribal chairs, if you're council members, if your individual members need someone, come to me and we'll help get you in the right place and start moving forward. And like Jim said, this is our goal today, is not to have a presentation to you and to talk to you. We really want to open up the communication. We want to hear from you, hear what your questions are, hear what your issues are, and then begin that discussion. So this is going to be hopefully more of a dialogue than a presentation. But for now, I am going to pass it on to Greg. He's our administrator for the Division of Environmental Protection. And when Greg comes up, I'm also going to pass around a handout that briefly describes what each of our divisions and programs does within the department.
Thanks, Dominique, and Jim and Cliff, and thanks to EPA and the Paula Band for hosting. I think it's been, I don't know if it's been a long time since they've had an event. Since I've been administrator, we've had events in Arizona, California, but not, to my understanding, in Nevada. So, welcome to everyone again to Nevada. So I'm just going to mention a couple of things that are happening right now. Folks are aware of the bipartisan infrastructure law, and there's a couple of big pieces that Nevada programs are, playing a part in, namely the water infrastructure program and the brownfields program. And so there's a lot going on with our water infrastructure program right now. We've enhanced, we've staffed up. We've actually just debuted earlier this year a new online application and tracking system. Our program is run by a very experienced program manager, Jason Cooper, and we do have not many, but a few tribal projects on our priority list. We're also taking some new regulations before our State Environmental Commission in December, where we're going to allow the definition of disadvantaged communities to be changed. And it's actually going to be changed in the future in an intended use plan. In the past, we used to define disadvantaged communities based on median household income. Now we're broadening that out to bring in a number of other demographic criteria. And so I just think it's important for tribes that are interested in water infrastructure to be paying attention, be contacting us and reaching out or talk to me, so we can make sure that we're reaching everyone we can and we're doing the most we can with those funds. In brownfields, we're also receiving a number of additional funds, and our program there has had some good interactions with tribes as well. Not as many as maybe we could take advantage of, but be sure to reach out to us. And we just had a program manager change there. Rebecca Bodner, who managed the program for a number of years, actually left NDEP. She's going to the state of Oregon to start with the Oregon Department of Forestry. But we're going to be staffing that program up again, and look forward to interactions with everyone on that. In the water area, just to mention a couple of things. We had a bill in our last legislative session called AB 146. And a lot of the focus on that bill was on non-point source pollution. And one of the discussions that we had during those hearings was, what could we do to enhance best management practices? We hadn't updated our best management practices manual since the late 90s. And so we're updating that best management practices manual now. We have a work group that's active. We're going to be taking that before the State Environmental Commission and the State Conservation Commission in early 2023. And if you want to plug into that effort, reach out. We do have a website, a work group, and want to make sure you're all aware of that. One last piece in water quality. We've been working on some regulations for over 2 years related to designating extraordinary aesthetic waters. These are surface waters in Nevada. So this is kind of a companion Nevada to the Outstanding Natural Resource Water designation. And this would allow sort of a higher tier protection for waters, headwaters, and those that don't have discharges now. And so we're working on finalizing those. We're expecting to see those come in January before our State Environmental Commission. And so that's something just to be paying attention to. Lastly, I wanted to mention, in terms of PFAS, we did have legislation in 2021 for Nevada to convene a work group to figure out how Nevada is going to address PFAS. And we've created a tool to prioritize field sampling locations. We're going to be letting out some contracts to be doing some field sampling in spring and summer of 2023. We're going to be sampling drinking water sources is going to be our priority. We're also going to be sampling streams around the state. And our action plan is laying out what actions will we take immediately in response to detections that we're likely to see. And so those are just a highlight of the few things that are happening right now for us that I wanted to mention. And then Darren Winkleman, who Jim introduced earlier, Cliff mentioned that, in general, there's an interest among some tribes, if not many, on enhancing recycling capabilities. And Darren's been leading up his program, Partners for Sustainable Nevada, and they're looking to team up with everyone across the state to enhance Nevada's recycling network. And Darren's available to answer questions or engage with you on that as well. And so I think with that, we can just open it up and move over to Chantal, who's going to make a few remarks from our Natural Heritage Program.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. It's really wonderful to have the opportunity to speak here. So my name is Chantal Ioso. I work with the Nevada Division of Natural Heritage. The division is largely tasked with gathering and storing data on sensitive species throughout the state. We're non-regulatory, so we're providing the scientific background so that other agencies and other groups are better able to make decisions that might involve sensitive species in the state. I'm part of a new program with the division. I lead the state's wetland program, and one big task that I'm working on in that capacity is to update the state's wetland plan. This is a 6-year plan that's designed to bring people together to identify the major objectives that we have for wetlands in the state, our major goals, and just to sort of help us guide the limited resources that we have to protect them in the way that's most effective. So I'm working on rewriting the state's wetland plan. The next plan is going to be for the next 6 years. The current one is expiring this year. And so mostly I'm here to listen to you all and hear the major challenges that are related to wetlands that you might be experiencing or noticing, so that I can make sure to incorporate that feedback in the wetland plan. I know that you may not have the opportunity to talk to me a whole lot about it, but I do welcome people reaching out to me over email or maybe at other events in the future. So if you just look up the Nevada Division of Natural Heritage, you'll find contact information for all of us. And I do encourage you to reach out to me. I would love to hear your feedback. So thank you again for giving me time to speak here, and I look forward to learning from you all.
Thank you. So do we have any questions wetlands related? I'm looking around for people near wetlands areas. There's a mic here.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, could you introduce yourself though?
Yeah, I'm Ross Rivera from the Ely Shoshone Tribe in Ely, Nevada. Recently, the Paso Wabi National Monument is finally coming to light. There's wetlands there, and with the Southern Nevada water grab, they could dry up and go away, and it's kind of a sacred site for the Native Americans. And what I see is Southern Nevada Water Authority purchased all of the ranches in Spring Valley for agriculture, and with the thought of someday using that water and piping it to Las Vegas. And it's like, it always behooves me that water is designated for one use and all of a sudden quickly turns to a different use. I don't think that's right. I mean, we see that with agriculture and water being used for mining and different areas. But I know, climate change, and we're in a drought in my area, and we're high desert anyways. I just don't agree with what it does to our lands.
Did you want to? Can you speak to that at all, Chantel? Did you hear?
Yeah, I did get that, and thank you for your comment. I absolutely do understand your concerns with that. I mean, it is sometimes challenging to conserve the water in the wetlands for themselves, both for their historic use by the tribes and continued use by the tribes, and also for just their pure conservation value. I can say that the division does not get to make those decisions. We just provide data about them, but that's definitely an area that I would love to learn more about. And sometimes having information about the sensitive species that are present or the outstanding value of the water can be a tool for protection. We just don't ultimately make that call. We just provide the data. That said, I would love to have you reach out to me offline, and I can look into that some more and see what information we might have about those wetlands. And thanks for your comment.
And thanks, Chantal. I mean, that's exactly right. I thought I'd add on a little bit, and certainly, the issue of piping or moving water from northern Nevada to southern Nevada has been something that's been controversial or talked about for many years now, it seems like. And I certainly understand your comment and the frustration about change of use or moving water around. I will say, a couple of things. The state water law is, between court decisions and what's in the state water law, these are decisions that our state engineer are making based on the law. That being said, if there's ideas on how we need to improve things, we're always open to that. And we are, certainly water is on our forefront. I'll add a couple of things as, my latest conversations with Southern Nevada water purveyors is they tell me that they're not interested in doing that anymore. That their primary focus or their single focus right now, particularly with Lake Mead water levels dropping, is not necessarily bringing in more water from the north, but how do you conserve more and more water for the existing uses that are down in Southern Nevada? And that's their focus right now, is water conservation. Doesn't mean that I'm telling you not to be mindful of things that might happen in the future, because I'm sure that's something that's still out there in many of your minds. And then another program that probably should mention real quick, because it's regarding water conservation. Last week, our interim finance committee for the state legislature approved a $100 million program for DCNR to administer in the areas of basically water conservation and water quality. We're focused on water conservation as well. We think that's going to be our primary focus in the light of climate change, as opposed to moving water from one place to the other. And Chantal is absolutely correct. The more information we can have regarding the status of our wetlands, then the better decisions and more informed decisions we can all make. So thank you for the question.
Thank you, Ross, too. And any other questions regarding wetlands areas or areas possibly impacted by climate change?
Thank you. Mervyn Wright Jr. I'm with the Pyramid Lake Paiute Tribe. And I took a look around the room, see who's here, and certainly I want to try to inspire some further comments. And thank you guys for being here. And I guess, you talk about dating yourself with, the years of experience. I guess I'll be doing the same, because when I first started working with the Pyramid Lake Paiute Tribe, the first individuals from the state of Nevada that I was introduced to was Roland Westergaard, Pete Moros, and as difficult it was, to really become acquainted with how we were negotiating that Truckee River water rights settlement, and beginning to understand the state of Nevada's deep-rooted feelings about water use, designated uses. And in my research, I went back to the early 1900s, in the late 1800s, when they were contemplating the Newlands project, and how the comments in those testimonies stated that water for Pyramid Lake is just wasted to the thirsty sun. And that's how the environment and uses associated with fisheries and environmental support, that's how it was viewed. Agriculture and mining was the dominant designated uses for water. And one thing that I want to just express to you guys, and thank you, Dominic, for being here, and is to understand really the our connection and the connectedness that we have to the environment, our cultural resources. And I just saw, I worked with the Native American Graves Protection and Repatriation Act, since it was enacted in the early 90s. And I saw on social media last night from my good colleague, Suzanne Harjo, where they are looking to repatriate cultural items from the battlefield of Wounded Knee in South Dakota. And every time I see that stuff, it upsets me, in regard to the possession and how these items have come into possession. And we all have items that have been looted, that have been taken from our lands, that are in museums, and that those are our ancestors. Those are the ones that came before us. And those that have possession have no right to hold them. I understand property law. I understand the right of possession and control, because that's usually what's thrown back at us. And the burden of proof is always put on us to prove to those that are holding that we have a right for this repatriation, which to me is unfair. But because of the laws that are in the books, lawyers and our politicians and our lawmakers, that's what they depend on, are those words in that law book, the words in the law, case law, whatever it is. And I said, and I'll say it and I'll keep saying it, just because it's in black and white does not make it right. It doesn't. And I'm using this issue because our connection goes beyond that. I'm learning now to communicate, to start out by saying, in a time before humans, in a time before we were created, our fish, our animals, the birds, the plants, they were the first life that set the rules on how to live and survive. And when we came along, they were the ones that taught us how to communicate. And so, and also know the rules and the laws, the natural laws, the unwritten laws of how to conserve and protect. And so we come along now. I mean, we're trying to live in those two sides of these worlds of tradition and modern day society. And I struggle at times in the position that I have with the EPA, doing the RTOC tribal co-chair responsibilities, in trying to bridge, from the beginning to now, where we're at with the unregulated contaminants, what society has done to impact an environment, and for your sake, and I know some of the folks in the room heard this on Monday, but I was in the White House. They're starting to promote what they call traditional ecological knowledge. We some of us call it traditional knowledge. It's termed indigenous traditional. I mean, people make up different terminology so that it's accommodating. And some of the folks in the room that know me, they know that when it comes to tradition and the ways that things have been handed down to us, there is a level of strict application that we have to hold to those traditions. We can't change them. We can't make them accommodating. And so when we get into negotiations and we get into having to work together, it is about building an understanding for both sides, for all of us, so that we can understand the mutual benefit of what we're trying to resolve, what we're trying to solve, the issue that Ross is bringing up. Those are things that we have to go back to our people and try to explain in the most simplest terms what's being proposed that's impacting our resources. And so, but I just wanted to just take this time to let you know that we appreciate, you being here. I can speak for myself, but we're in this together, and we have to find solutions together. And when we know that the economy is based on development, our resources tend to be limited. And sometimes the decisions we make, and we see it historically, Newlands Project, for example. I mean, what's going on the Walker River with the irrigation district in Mason Valley. And I just wanted to say that I remember one year we were in a serious drought, and the state engineer issued a proclamation saying that groundwater use will be restricted to 25%. Okay. Well, we went out to Sweetwater to go gather pine nuts that September, and driving through Smith Valley, all of those wheel lines were running, and I thought there was a proclamation that said these guys could only use 25% of the water, and here we are at the end of the irrigation season, and those wheel lines are all just running out there. And so those are like education. We need to educate and try to get to this point of knowing that, in the simplest terms, survival in a way of life and supporting our ways of life, requires sometimes that we have to cut. We have to make sure that tomorrow's another day, and that we want to have these resources available, and we don't use them all up today, And so our survival has been to live in that balance, with our resources. Thank you.
Thanks, Mervyn. I do want to point out that my boss just entered the room, ITCN Executive Director Desiree Quintana, and she's a member of the Walker River Paiute tribe. So thank you for being here, Desiree. She rarely gets to see me work, so I just get her coffee. Mervyn brought up something I thought was interesting, though, that we talked about on Monday during the Regional Tribe Operations Committee meeting. One thing that we're noticing with climate change, the increase in ambient temperature, is that working with the agencies, federal and state, we're finding that we need to get the data by ourselves. We need to get directly. And so we're looking at increasing monitoring by tribes and finding funding to pay for monitoring. Like you're talking about going out to Sweetwater and, they're pulling the water. We need to get the information from our people, because there's a trust issue where we're being told by federal agencies information, and then we're finding out it's wrong. And then what they're telling us is, that office over there must be doing it or approved it. We didn't. We moved the authority for that to that office. And so I'm sorry, I didn't communicate that we changed that. And so we're finding that we need to get this information ourselves. We're finding ways to do it. So we're finding as a result of that, we need to do a better job doing our own little observational science. This is something that came up. I did want to hit upon what, so the first day at the job, Dominique and Greg, and were you there? They took me in a room and talked to me. The first thing they brought up was the remains lying at the Carson City Museum, and how can you help us with this, Cliff? It's the first thing they brought up, besides saying hi. And so we didn't have much movement on that, but the University of Nevada, Reno also has remains. 23, I believe, is the number, remains there. And ITCN and Nevada Indian Commission been talking with UNR regarding getting those remains out of there, basically, and to where they should go. And so Governor Sandoval, who's the President Sandoval now for UNR, showing up at ITCN meetings, and we had a lot of movement there. I remember one specific meeting where students from UNR were there, and one of the students said something that blew my mind. He said, you know what? And we're talking about education for students. There are more remains of Native Americans at UNR than Native American students. There's 23 remains, and there are more remains than Native American students. And that was is the situation we're at regarding getting our young people getting formal education. And that's a little sidebar there, but so as part of the actions, action items, we're hiring a liaison. They identified they need to hire a liaison for UNR, and I believe they have, and that is one of the M's, Daphne M. Yeah, or Daphne. Everybody knows Daphne, I think. But they also were supposed to hire a Native American Grave Repatriation Act, NAGPRA, tribal liaison. But during an open meeting for Nevada Indian Commission on Monday, I believe, NIC Executive Director Stacey Montu said that they're not going to hire the NAGPRA expert now. And I don't know if that's accurate or not. But so the Intertribal Council of Nevada is made up of the chairpersons of each of the now 28 federally recognized tribes in Nevada. Fort Mojave joined us. And that's going to be a discussion. I know that that's something we're going to have to talk about. So I don't know if that rumor is going around, but it's not over. So we're going to continue that discussion regarding, because it's an important position, having a NAGPRA expert for UNR and someone that can really lead the charge, because it is important, but God, all of us have so much on our plate, and it's more TIPO related. It's more a cultural item. When I think of environmental, I'm thinking Clean Water Act, Clean Air Act, and everything like that. NAGPRA, all these other things I want to get to, but it's just on the side there, and it's just hard to find the focus to do that work. So we need someone to lead us, and if it's UNR, I think having that NAGPRA liaison for UNR is an excellent idea. So I think that's going to be a topic of discussion coming up in ITCN board meetings, because it is a standing item, agenda item for the ITCN regular meetings. Just want to touch upon that because that was discussed, and it is of high importance to the tribal leaders. So what I want to do, and I said, hey, Greg, can you invite Darren, because solid waste is an issue, and Ross spoke up, and we don't have Elko here, but I think we have Wells, and solid waste and recyclables is a major issue for tribes in Nevada. And we do have Jenny Stevenson from, I saw Jenny, where did Jenny go? Oh, there she is, right there in front of me. And she's from what do you guys call it now? Zero Waste Division? They just change it all the time. So, but she's a specialist for Region 9. And then we have Darren Winkleman, who's Sustainable Materials Bureau Chief. And so wanted to discuss what we're finding is it's just not cost feasible to transport recyclables from the location of where you're gathering, which is the tribal land. And a lot of tribes we're taking it in northern Nevada to Salt Lake City, some of them to Twin Falls, because Elko area was that, and Vegas, and Reno too. And but because of northeast Nevada, where a lot of tribes are in that area there, they don't take it anymore. Elko was mandated to do it through the charter, but they just said it was just too cost. It just wasn't working. So they cut that out. And Ely, same thing. And they had a private company, I believe, doing some things, but that fell apart. City of Ely did, but they don't do that anymore. Is that correct? Yeah. And so we were talking a few years back before COVID about a hub and spoke type way to do this. How can we do it? We throwing out crazy ideas like maybe even using Union Pacific and trains and putting in the train and shipping them out. Just any way to do it, because the state and the townships and cities are in the same predicament, a lot of them. How can we maybe coordinate on getting this waste out? And it sounds like a small issue, but when I went to go visit Elko, they had such a buildup of recyclables and other waste. It was attracting all sorts of flies and pests and everything, and it was a blight. And when we're talking about sustainability of tribal environmental programs, it doesn't look good when there's a mess and everybody knows the environmental department is in charge of that and they aren't doing anything about it. That may not be true, but the perception is or not. And so the tribe and the community members lose faith in the program and faith in the tribe. And so to be sustainable, you need to have that. And it's such low-hanging fruit. Can we fix this so we can do our job? And so I thought it'd be a good discussion, and maybe Darren, I can give the mic to you, ideas that the state's talking about, and maybe how you can coordinate with the tribes on recyclables and other similar waste.
Sure. Thank you for having us. I really appreciate it. Always up for talking trash, so it's one of my passions. But yeah, so we've got a lot of interesting things going on right now. I'm going to back up a little bit and talk. Years ago, we really talked about, recycling being kind of we're going to save everything through recycling. We're really at a tipping point in looking at, is that really the best approach that we want to be looking at, is recycling? And so you probably heard about the 3 R's in reduce, reuse, and then recycle. So we're really looking at, how do we reduce the amount of waste we're producing as a nation, as a state? And that's really where we're beginning to kind of refocus our efforts. Not that recycling is still important, but how do we get to a point where we're not even generating the amount of waste that we're generating? I think that's really what we need to begin to start thinking about. Because when we look at recycling and trying to get recycling to the end market, it's super, super difficult. It really is. That's one of the biggest problems we have in terms of transportation. And now with gas prices going up, nobody wants to transport that material. And so we ultimately don't want to generate that material. So one of the things we're looking at right now is, as Cliff brought up, is the hub and spoke. And New Mexico has done a pretty good model in terms of hub and spoke. And so we're trying to look at what they've done and how we can maybe replicate that in Nevada. It's a large lift, I guess, to look at that. When you look at the distance we have in between different counties and different cities within the state. But we're looking at Nye County as being one of them, maybe a particular hub for us. And then how do we spoke off of that? If you don't know what hub and spoke model is, really it's looking at one area where people can bring, all the spokes can bring things into that hub. And then that hub then takes it to ultimately the end market. So it's a brand new concept for us in the state, but I think it's something we need to look at. And it's a model that we know that works and can work. And I think it would work in the state. So we'd welcome any sort of input that you have on that. If you've been hearing about it or you have some ideas about it, certainly we want to know about it. Patty Moen, who is one of our recycle sustainability coordinators within the state, is kind of heading that group for us and has done a lot of work with it. And so we're excited to see if we can bring that to fruition. Obviously, it takes some money to do and some obvious partnerships to go along with that. And so working with all the different entities when we're looking at, like, I think Cliff, you'd mentioned railways. That's a big piece of what we have to do, maybe to work on hub and spoke. And then obviously the transportation industry, we have to work with closely with NDOT, Nevada Department of Transportation, to ensure we can do what we want to do. So lots going on there. One thing I would like to make a small little pitch for, if I can, is to help with that. We've created the Partners for Sustainable Nevada. And I hope most of you, if not all, have heard about that. We have about 400 members. 100 of those members are active. And then we have several chairs and co-chairs that are heading up some special groups that are working on some education outreach and legislative issues and kind of looking at our different regulations we have within the state. And so that's really been a great forum. One of the biggest things we've heard is that we want to talk about sustainability, but we don't know how. That's what when we changed kind of our focus from waste management several years ago to sustainability, that's what we were hearing, is that we didn't have kind of a coordinated effort. And so we created this group to try to begin those talks, begin discussions about sustainability, and bring everybody to the table to talk about those issues. And so we have just a great amount of brain power within this group. And it started out originally as kind of sustainable materials, but in all honesty, I'm going to get Greg here a little squirrely maybe, but it's grown a little bit further out of sustainable materials. We're really into sustainability as a whole, kind of looking at everything. Because when you think about, when you're talking about waste management, recycling, whatever, climate change, underlying word of all of that is sustainability. And so, and everybody that came to the table for this group has understood that and recognized that. And so it's been a eye-opener for us as an agency. And we hope that this group, the idea behind this group is that it grows to a point where it kind of operates on its own and becomes its own little entity. But and then also we have, real quick, Cliff, if I may, we're working on the state solid waste management plan. That plan is due every 5 years. We do have a great opportunity right now. We're changing kind of the I guess, the look at that plan. And instead of calling it the solid waste management plan, we were looking at calling it the sustainable materials management plan, looking at solid waste holistically. Before it looked just at solid waste. Now we're looking at hazardous waste in that plan. We're looking at sustainability, how all that affects the plan as a whole. And it's under current review now, and we hope to take that plan to the State Environmental Commission in December. But if you haven't seen the plan, I think, Cliff, you probably have it. We'd be more than happy to give it to you. We want the input. This is really kind of an overarching plan for the state regarding solid waste. And again, looking at how that affects sustainability throughout the entire state. So any input you can give, we welcome. And certainly, like I said, our goal is to be in front of the Environmental Commission in December. But if we get input from you and we have to make some changes, we can certainly move that date out a little bit, because we want this plan really to highlight what we're doing in the state of Nevada in terms of trying maybe like zero waste type goals, our sustainability goals, solid waste goals, reduction goals within the state. And so it's due every 5 years, but we want it to be the premier plan moving over for the next 5 years. So any input would be great.
Thanks, Darren. Not squirrely at all, by the way. But so just to point out something really quick, I think what I'm excited about Partners for Sustainable Nevada is it's a forum that NDEP really hasn't had in the past, where, you know, different folks with different expertise, different interests are coming together, and there's a place where we can talk about what would work, what wouldn't work. And it's not just coming from, you know, I have my interest on and I'm representing and I'm, you know, meshing or clashing and coming together or not. I think, you know, we've seen in the Nevada legislature is sort of one issue bills that come up and say, we're going to attack this issue. But then, you know, maybe the stakeholder outreach wasn't there. Maybe the expertise, you know, it was sort of advancing an issue, and there wasn't really a network of people to say, well, how is this going to work practically? Is this the best thing to put our effort towards? And so, you know, just broadly, I think Partners is, I'm excited about it because it enables us to communicate in a different way. And I like the analogy that your team came up with, where, you know, the state's providing like soil and nutrients and things like that, and that really the growth is taking place with all the partners. And so, I mean, there's maybe other programs where we could apply that kind of model. And but, you know, if there's folks out there interested in recycling and sustainable materials, I encourage you to look into that group.
Okay, so open it up to you guys. Anybody want to share any of your solid waste recyclable issues that you have? Staring at you guys. No one right now. I did want to. One item came up. So in 2014, maybe, all the Nevada landfills met in Elko at Great Basin College and discussing what can we do to take care of this issue. This has been around for a while. And these guys are really, if you know landfill workers, they're just, you know, people that work with their hands. And some of them do the work with a staff of 2. It's really hard work. And these are strong, tough people that work 14, 15-hour days. And they all were in agreement on what the number one thing we need to focus on. And that was K through 6 education. We need to have the kids unlearn the bad habits and relearn good habits, because it's source reduction is what we need to do. And they said they need to pour more money into education, have more educational outreaches, and it needs to be part of the curriculum. This type of how to use waste, because in the world where environmental world, it's kind of sickening sometimes walking through a shopping place like Rayleigh's or whatever, and rows and rows and rows of waste. You're like, why does this stuff even exist? Why can't we just have a thing like this and just fill it up? You know, and that in the 60s, that was a train of thought, and they went the other direction because of the pressure from big corporations creating more waste. And so that has, if you guys are thinking about that source reduction, that is on the mind of a lot of people. How do we do that? But there's those, it's tough because the producers, as always, the polluters are the ones kind of fighting us. So I'm going to call you guys out, the ones I know. Oh, would Jim want to say something?
I was going to say something, and I noticed that a few people have come in since we started this presentation. So I wanted to let you know that we have a handout. I'm going to set it on the side over here. If you want to learn a little bit more about our Department of Conservation and Natural Resources and its divisions and programs and the work that we do, I'm going to leave that up here. We'll try and get it somewhere where it's more easily accessible. And then I briefly wanted to touch on some of the comments that Merv made. There wasn't necessarily questions in there, but man, that was some pretty powerful, heavy stuff when you really think about it, right? And the reality is that, yeah, we've got laws in place that are old and they're outdated, but that's how we have to make our decisions. And sometimes we try to make a different decision and we get excoriated in the courts, right? And we get set back. And so we've at times tried to bring legislation forward that is looking more at conservation of the resource, because you're talking about, in one instance, the water going down to Pyramid Lake and that being viewed as waste. That happens, I think, across all of our natural resources, right? There's a benefit to the use, and that's necessary for the things that we use to live today that help us thrive in our community. But on the other hand, when you're using those resources, you're having the negative impacts environmentally, socially, culturally, and we're doing the best we can to achieve that balance with the laws that we have, but we haven't been successful at tweaking those laws. And that's where we need your help. Just a few sessions ago, actually for several sessions now, say our Division of Water Resources has tried to bring legislation forward that would have an eye towards more conservation. And we haven't been successful because we're the state. Nobody trusts us. So we need to work with you and with our partners to come up with a collaborative approach so we can address those types of issues. But I thank you for raising, that's important.
Just a quick comment, and I just want to thank Greg for pointing this out. Before the session, we had a conversation, and we've got some issues going on with air quality and the deposition, of those emissions, in the river corridor. And certainly we would be happy to work with NDEP on specific studies, potential research on the impacts that emission deposition could have in areas. And I wanted to bring this up because it's not just the Truckee River watershed, but we've got other areas where there are emissions that are occurring out in rural Nevada. And if the EPA can work with NDEP as well as with the tribes where these areas are impacted, to look at the potential for studying to get to a point of finding a solution to a potential problem, I would certainly encourage that. Thank you.
You hear that, Roberto? Oh, I thought someone had a question, or no? Oh yeah, Darren.
I don't know what this is going to look like, but this is the first time we've heard from our EPA partners that there is going to be some solid waste funding coming out. And in my tenure of, I'll date myself now, of 20 some odd years doing this, I don't think we've seen a lot of funding for solid waste type issues. So be on the lookout for those funding sources. I don't know what it's going to be or what it's going to be for, just in terms of solid waste, but I don't know more particulars about it. But just kind of heads up, looking out for that funding coming soon, I think.
Thank you. Can someone throw a mic at Jenny Stevenson right now? Because you talked about Swiffer, and I don't know in the Inflation Reduction Act if there's any solid waste funding that EPA is going to make available. If you can just touch upon that a little bit. Geez. You got 2 minutes.
2 minutes, real quick. Okay. Yeah, thanks for raising that. So with the bipartisan infrastructure law, EPA got money to support solid waste infrastructure for recycling. The acronym is SWIFR. There's going to be 3 pots of money. Well, and I should say it's $275 million over the course of 5 years. There's 1 pot of money that will be non-competitive to states. Likely, it will help fund data and planning and strategies. So, getting better data on what's being generated, where is it going. Some of that strategy development could help support hub and spoke, but it can't buy equipment. There's going to be a competitive pot, so like coalitions coming together to actually implement recycling, composting programs. And then there's going to be a pot just for tribes. And that one will probably be out the latest, January-ish. And it's still in development, but it's all for solid waste infrastructure and recycling and would be able to buy equipment. So we're still like the RFPs, the state one will probably come out first, and then the competitive one. And then I should also mention there's RIO, the Recycling Education and Outreach Grant, focused specifically on recycling education and outreach. So that will be a separate competitive grant program that has $75 million attached to it over 5 years. And I'll give you back your 2 minutes.
Thanks, Jenny. I did want to say one thing before we closed out. So it was brought up legislation. Now, because we get general assistance program money and other federal money, we're really tied as far as lobbying, what we construed as lobbying, but we work hand in hand with the Nevada Indian Commission, Intertribal Council of Nevada. They don't have the same restraint. So we're getting a lot of movement now through the ITCN board, communicating legislative items. And so you guys are the technical experts for the tribes. And I ask that you communicate to your leaders things you identify. Why is this being done? Why do they do this? Or are gaps that's needed? And communicating to your tribal leaders. Are you putting in your reports? Again, keeping in mind you can't lobby, but then they can communicate to the ITCN board, and NIC is always at the ITCN board meetings, and then they can be the lead or coordinate pushing legislation that needs to be done. The Pyramid Lake Paiute tribe, the Washoe tribe of Nevada and California have been great recently pushing legislation, and more tribes need to do that. We have a lot of power and influence, and okay, so it dies in committee, but you keep at it, and then you fix it up, and then it gets through. But that's a way you can help your role here. You have an important role. You're the technical experts, and your tribes rely on you. So please try to communicate these things to your tribal leaders, or call me, communicate to me, or communicate to Stacy Montooth directly at Nevada Indian Commission, or even Dominique. He's a liaison for DCNR, and he can walk over or call me up like, Cliff, did you know this is happening? So that's an avenue we can use. I'm saying this with knowing Laura Ebert's in the room. Cliff, you can't lobby. Not with her money. Okay, but that's we only have an hour, and we talked about a lot of things during Tribal Caucus of the people that were to our talk. But I'm always here walking around, so grab my ear if you need or want to talk to me. My boss is pretty evasive, so you good luck trying to lasso her down. But so thank you guys for coming here. Hope you guys have a good day. And thank you, all you guys for DCNR and NDP being here. And next year is going to be in Viejas. We were there not too long ago. I think Greg was there too. Yeah. So San Diego area. Thank you.